Good morning. How are you all today? Welcome to Integrative Preparedness. I'm Steve Smith. It is a beautiful Sunday morning. Sky is clear as a bell. The weather is perfect. And I'm going to do something a little bit different today since it is Sunday, and it was a video that I was going to do anyway, but I'm going to do it a little bit different. Oh, by the way, and it's going to be, I'm going to call it, I think, the parable of the prodigal prepper. And I'm going to put this on both the church channel, Stonemont Church. If you're not with us over there and you'd like to be, the link is down below. We'd love to have you. And on the Integrative Preparedness channel, because it applies to both. And if you are familiar with the parable of the prodigal son, and most people aren't as familiar with it as they ought to be, we're gonna talk about that. I'm gonna do it by reading a chapter out of my new book, not the latest one that was out, not the seventh book, but the one I'm working on now, number 8, which the people over on the Patreon channel already know the name of it and have seen the cover, but I'm not letting it out to the world yet. But I'm going to read a chapter out of that explains it, and I think you all will enjoy it. I know that everybody's talking today about the bombing of Iran. I'm not going to talk about that. I made one last night. I gave my opinion on. I do want to say something about that, by the way, and give a compliment to the people here. I put out my opinion, my thoughts on it last night. I'm not going to say anything more about it now. You have to understand that we don't really know what's going on. I know that people think they know what's going on because they hear the news, and we have to check ourselves. I mean, we go around saying we don't believe the news, and then when something comes out in the news, we go repeating it, right? Well, we don't really know what's going on. But here's a compliment that I want to give everybody. A lot of people get mad, and they say, well, you take off comments of people that disagree with you. Well, a number of people disagreed with me on the one that I put, both on the YouTube channel and the Patreon channel, and I didn't take any of them off because I gave my opinion, and they gave no. There was one person that I took off. There is one person that I deleted and banned because he came on and said that what I had said was a lie, and I don't take that. That's it, because what I gave was my opinion. Okay, and I looked back when I looked back on his previous comments. He had been close to the line for quite a while, and I probably shouldn't have let him go that long. But the rest of everybody out there, we had differing opinions, and they were all posted respectfully, and I respect that you may have a different opinion than I do. Good for you. This is America, right? Okay, let me take a sip here, and then I'm going to talk about the parable. My parable. The parable of the prodigal prepper. Grab yourself something. Do you have a Stonemont mug to drink out of? Okay, you should. Why don't you? So, I was writing. I went back to start a new chapter on this, and I always read. It's been a little while since I wrote, so I go back and I read the previous chapter, and to kind of keep continuity. And so this is what it is, and I have to set this up for you. Reagan. For those of you who have read the Stonemont series, you know this, and many of you are in love with Reagan. I know that she's a young woman who is exceedingly well. She had a horrible childhood. She was taken captive. She was taken into sex slavery. She came out of it. She saved other people. She has shown herself to be selfless. She has risked her life numerous times for Stonemont. She was saved out of sexual slavery, and she has risked her life numerous times for Stonemont. She has a bedrock loyalty to Stonemont, but she is still troubled, and she has risen through the ranks. She has come up. She has won a very, very important position in the Scouts, and but she just doesn't feel like she's a part of things. She has guilt, she has regrets about her previous life, things like this, and so she is going to visit Cassius Street, the pastor there in Jamestown, which is the town that's adjacent to Stonemont, that was built by Stonemont, and she's going to see him. And Street himself, to give you a little bit of background on him, he was a minister who had been away from his family when it all collapsed. He was at a conference, came back, and they were dead. He couldn't find them, and so he searched for them. He just hasn't been able to find his family. He's been folded into Stonemont, and was convinced by Jim Wyatt to be the minister, the pastor of Stonemont. And he is what I think a pastor ought to be, a minister ought to be, and he's based on the minister of the church in which I was christened and baptized. So anyway, that's the story. Now I'm going to lead up there, and we're going to get into a story. So I suggest that I think that you'll get them. First off, let me ask you this. Do you know what prodigal means? And I'll bet you right now many of you are probably going into your phones and looking it up, and you're going to be surprised. 99 out of 100 Christians don't know what prodigal means. Okay? Now you can look it up now, or you can pause it and you look it up, and you're going to be surprised. Most Christians say, well, he's the person that went away and came back and all. No, that's not what prodigal means. Okay, and so you'll see how I apply this to preppers after I get done with this. Okay, so you might want to wait until after I tell the story here, after I read the story, to look up prodigal, or you might not, however you want to do it. Okay, so this is, we're starting the chapter here. It says, Reagan waited for a rail buggy to pass in front of her because Stonemont has reintroduced technology. See, I don't know, fascinating. Should I show the books? Those of you who haven't read them, the Stonemont series, the collapse of everything and how one prepared family, as a result of their preparedness, is able to not only continue to live well, but help others and rebuild society. Yeah, you can get them a couple of different ways. Amazon down below, or through my website, stonemont.us, which is the better way, but I want to give you a warning about that way. Well, I'll give it to you right now. It takes longer to get them from me. We are so stacked up on orders. We're running a month behind. But if you want them signed by me and a little note put in there in each one of them to you and all that, get them through me. I love it when you do that. Okay. I'll remind you of that later, but I want to get to the story. Okay. Reagan waited for a rail buggy to pass in front of her, then crossed the street to the town hall. She wondered whether Jim would close the town square to vehicular traffic, as he had mentioned he might, and as he had done in the compound, and thought how odd it was that she was even thinking about traffic. Walking to a side door of the town hall, she entered and stood quietly in the dimness, wondering whether she could go through with what she had come here for, and even if she should. Taking a deep breath, she felt the coolness of the air in the hallway and smelled the comforting aroma of the cob walls, then walked quietly to an open door on the right. Stopping just short of the doorway, she steeled herself again, then stepped forward and tapped softly on the jamb. Cassius Street looked up from the book he was reading and smiled. "Reagan, come in." She took a tentative step into the room, still questioning the wisdom of her decision. "I'm sorry to bother you, Dr. Street, but do you have a minute?" Street stood up and came around his desk, his smile broadening. "I'm never too busy for you, Reagan. Please come in." She took a step further and looked around the office, noting the comfortable feel of the room with a sofa, several side chairs, and floor-to-ceiling shelves of books. Pictures depicting biblical themes hung on the walls, as did several framed verses of scripture. "You have a lot of books," she said, immediately embarrassed at how stupid that sounded. He nodded slowly, studying her and recognizing her unease. "Yes, the scouts were kind enough to bring me many of my favorite ones and many of particular use for my job." Her eyes roamed the shelves. "Have you read them all?" He looked over at the shelves. "Well, I've read all of most of them and most of the rest of them." He looked back at her. "Do you enjoy reading?" She shook her head. "I've never been much of a reader. He shrugged. Not everyone is. We each have our particular interests. He smiled, still watching her closely. I think you are more of a person of action. Am I right? She nodded slowly. Yeah, I guess so. He waited for her to say something else, but when she didn't, he asked, Would you like a cup of coffee? I just made some, was about to have a cup myself. She looked at him directly for the first time since entering the room. Yes, thank you. He smiled. Good. Coffee is always better when sharing it with someone else. He motioned towards a pair of stuffed chairs facing his desk. Please, sit down. I'll pour us each a cup. Reagan sat down in one of the chairs and watched him as he went to a side table and poured 2 cups of coffee from a ceramic pot that was warming on a rack over a small candle. He seemed so at peace, each of his movements deliberate and controlled, with no hurry or wasted energy. Picking up the cups, he brought one to her and then sat down at his desk. It's good of you to stop by, he said, recognizing her continued uncertainty. I rarely have visitors, and it's nice to have someone come in to see me. I was just trying to decide on a subject for this Sunday's sermon. She took a sip of her coffee, still unsure of what to say, and he gave her a minute of silence before asking, So, to what do I owe this pleasure? She looked at him for a moment, then looked down at her cup. I'm not sure. He watched her, giving her a moment to say more. I'm not sure, she repeated. I just felt like I wanted to talk to you, but now that I'm here, I don't know what I want to say. He nodded in understanding. Would it surprise you to know that many people feel that way when they come to see me? She looked up at him. Really? He smiled. Really? He took a sip of his coffee and rested the cup on the arm of his chair. There are times in life when we don't know what we need. We just know that we need. And very often, those are the times that bring us closer to God. She took a sip and shook her head slowly. I'm not sure I believe in God. His eyes softened as he thought of so many who had felt this. I understand. With your life experiences, I can see that could be very difficult for you. But I can assure you that He is here with us now, and that He believes in you. She shook her head again. Nobody has ever believed in me. He cocked his head, watching her closely. Well, Jim believes in you. Christian believes in you. Mike believes in you. Those who serve under you believe in you. The entire community believes in you. I believe in you. He paused to make his next point stand on its own. And whether you believe it or not, and whether you believe in Him or not, God does believe in you. She looked down at her cup, then back up. If God exists, how could He believe in me? Why should He after all the things I've done? Street leaned forward in his chair, placing his coffee cup on the desk and folding his hands. Because whether you know it or not, He is your loving Heavenly Father who created you, and you are His beloved child. I know you may not understand or feel it, but He has been with you every moment of your life, in good times and bad. It sure didn't feel that way. He nodded. I know. When times are bad, we think He doesn't care, and when times are good, we think we don't need Him. But He is always with us, protecting us and guiding us if we will ask Him to, and listen to Him. She took a sip of her coffee, thinking about that. It doesn't seem like He protected me from much. Street gave a small shrug. And yet you're still here. She took a sip of her coffee before answering and nodded. Yeah. And how many people have you helped? Even saved? She shrugged. I don't know. Well, I know. A lot. God has been working through you ever since you got here. Many people have been blessed as a result of God working through you. She shook her head. I just did what I thought I should do. He nodded again and why do you think you should do those things? I don't know. I just felt they were the right things to do. He smiled. It's because you love. Okay, the neighbor boy came out to mow his lawn, and I thought, well, I'll wait, but that's all right. You know, it's Sunday. I'll bring you a little bit closer to me so you can hear and just enjoy the sound of the suburbs and a young man mowing his family's lawn, right? Okay, so where I left off, when he asked her, why do you think you should do those things? I don't know, I just felt they were the right things to do. He smiled. It's because you love. She looked at him questioningly. What do you mean? Well, people who have lost the most or been hurt the most often love the most. They hide it beneath a hard shell, but are all the softer inside because of it. I don't remember getting much love, she said. But you have a lot of it within you, whether you recognize it as love or not. And where do you think it comes from? She looked at him for a long moment. Are you saying it comes from God? He nodded. The Bible tells us that God is love, and that he loves us so much that he gave his only Son in sacrifice so that whoever believed in him would have everlasting life. And that means you. He took a sip of his coffee before continuing. Reagan, you were born his perfect child. Then hardship entered your life because of the evil in the world. But he was always with you, protecting you from even worse things that actually happened to you, sustaining you along the way, and finally bringing you here. The feeling you had that brought you here today was the quiet voice of his Spirit calling you to him. She remained silent for a minute, holding tightly to her cup, then looked back up at him with tears in her eyes. I may have been a victim of the things that happened to me when I was younger, but I've done a lot of bad things since then. How could God still love me? He smiled and stood up. Stand up for a moment. I want to show you something. She stood, still holding her cup. He came around the desk. Come over here and look at this picture. She turned around and took several steps to stand behind him as he looked up at a picture on the wall. What do you see in the picture? He asked. She studied the picture. An older man is walking with his arms out toward another man who looks like a beggar. He nodded. Do you know who they are? She shook her head. No. Are you familiar with the story of the prodigal son? She shook her head. I've heard the saying, but I don't know the story. It is one of Jesus' parables. In short, a man's second son asks his father for his inheritance, something that is not usually received until after a father's death. The father gives his son his share, and the son leaves home to lead a life of sin and frivolity far away. When the inheritance runs out, a famine hits the land, and the son is left destitute. Starving, he convinces a farmer to hire him to feed his pigs, the lowest job he could imagine. Still, no one will help him, and it gets to the point where he thinks that even the food he is feeding the pigs would be better than starving. Finally, coming to his senses, he realizes that even his father's hired hands live better than he is living, and he decides to go home and beg his father for a job so he at least won't starve to death. So that's the father and son? Asked Reagan, staring intently at the picture. Street nodded. Yes. What did the father do? The Bible tells us that while the son was still far away, the father saw him and ran to him, embracing him and kissing him in joy at his return. More than that, he called for a special robe to be brought out for the son, sandals to be brought for the son's feet, a ring to be placed on the son's finger, and a feast to be prepared in celebration of the son's return. She looked at him. The father wasn't mad? Street smiled, leafing through the pages of the Bible that rested on a stand beneath the painting. It tells us in Luke. Let's see what it says. Tracing his finger to the place he wanted, he began to read. We must celebrate with a feast, for this son of mine was dead and has now returned to life. He was lost, but now he is found. Reagan looked back up at the picture, but said nothing. You see, Reagan, we are all prodigals. We have each turned away from the Father in our own ways and in our own times. But Jesus told this parable as a way of showing us that no matter what we do, God rejoices when we return to him, holding nothing against us and taking us back into his loving care. There is nothing that can separate us from his love, no matter what we have done, and all he wants is for us to turn back to him. She lowered her eyes, looking down at the Bible. No matter what? He shook his head. No matter what. I've killed people, she said. He waited for a moment before answering. So have I. She looked up at him in surprise. You? He nodded. Yes, in war. Well, that's different. I didn't do it in war. You did it to save your own life and the lives of others, he answered. I did it because I was told to. Which do you think is worse? I don't know, she said uncertainly. He looked at her closely. Do you have a Bible, Reagan? She shook her head. No. He walked back to his desk and opened the bottom drawer from which he withdrew a pink leather-bound Bible. Walking back around the desk, he handed it to Reagan. This was my daughter's. I want you to have it. She looked up at him, shocked. Me? Yes. She took the Bible hesitantly, running her fingertips lightly over the cover, and the name embossed on the lower right corner, Rebecca Catherine Street. Tears welled in her eyes. I don't know what to say. He smiled. Say that you'll read it. She nodded, holding the book tighter. I will. She looked up at the picture, then back at the Bible. Will you show me where the story you just told me is? His smile traveled to his eyes, and he nodded. Yes, and as many more things as you want me to. Okay, that's the end of that chapter. There's so many lessons in there for us as people and as preppers. There's a lot of misunderstanding out there, religion-wise, theological-wise. So many people who are raised in different churches, regardless of denominations, know a small sliver of the entire message of the Bible. That's a shame. You need to understand it all. But now that I'm done with that, I'm going to step over and talk about the prodigal prepper. What does this have to do? Have you all looked up what prodigal meant? No. And most people will say, well, I don't know. If they're familiar with the story, it means, somebody that went away and did bad things and came back. Well, yeah. But prodigal actually means one wasting money on frivolous and stupid things. That's what it means. That's what the son does. He left the certainty and the security of his father's farm, wanted to go out and live the high life, wanted to go out and find the excitement in the world, and took his inheritance. And you realize, well, when he asked for his father for his inheritance, he actually was telling his father he wished he was dead. And he took that and went out into the world and spent that money foolishly. And he came back. He hit rock bottom, which is where most of us find God again. And his father, of course, welcomed him back. And that is the lesson of God's wanting and being always ready for our return. But as this applies to preparedness, how many preppers have gone out there and wasted money on stupid stuff, right? You get all excited about preparedness, and instead of staying with the basics, they go out and they buy these guns and these fancy guns, and then they got to have a new sight on their gun, they got to have new grips on their gun, and then they have to have a new rifle, and they got $600 rifle won't do, a $2,000 rifle, and then I've heard that you spend twice as much on your glass as you do on your, and they'll sit around and they'll talk about these things because they've read them in magazines, and they talk about them like they know it, or they got to have this $150 knife, the knife I carry, I spent $5 on. I've had it for years. Then they got to have, a maxed out, a cool, decked out, bug out bag, or they got to have this or that. And it's just stupid. And I've said this before, is that when people are driven by fear, they waste time, money, and effort. And the important thing about preparedness is to return to the basics, to understand the basics, number one, to know what you need. Think about what do you need, not what is going to make it, not what you saw on Doomsday Preppers, or not what you have seen on any number of preparedness sites or gun sites about this is the coolest thing that's ever been, and you got to have it. I've had so many people who have commented on my videos that say, I am so glad I found your channel, because I have wasted so much money over the years buying all the doodads and gewgaws that all these other channels tell me I need. That is a bunch of well, it's a bunch of foolishness. I almost said something that I don't usually want to say on the church channel. That's a bunch of foolishness. Go to the basics, just as the parable of the prodigal son tells us to return to the basics. The important thing about preparedness is to go to the basics. What are the basics? Food, water, shelter, defense, medical ability, and people. Okay? So if you have found yourself caught up in the circle of well, the prodigal circle, I was going there and said prodigality? I don't know. If you have been a prodigal, if you've been out there spending money all over the place, it's foolishness. And you know how many people do that and then they're broke? And out there, and you know, they'd be lucky to feed the pigs. And they finally come back to the basics. So the lesson of the prodigal son, of course, is coming back to a forgiving father. But as we approach it from a preparedness standpoint, it is coming back to the basics. Make sure you have the basics down. The world, the preparedness world, is full of people who have a whole bunch of fancy junk and don't have the basics down, because they're living in a fantasy. They're living in a dream world that they think is exciting. And you know, the basics aren't all that exciting, but the basics are what get you through. Okay, that's it. Hey, for those of you who have not read the Stone Mount series, I want to remind you of it. I told you this at the beginning. These are my books. I wrote these books. I call them the complete guide for preparing for, surviving, and rebuilding after a total collapse of everything. It is the story about a prepared family who, as a result of their preparedness, was not only able to continue living a high-quality life, but was able to help other people as well, which you should be ready to do, and then start rebuilding community and society the way community and society ought to be built, not the way it's devolved into today, okay, based on the foundational principles. It is, people tell me it's the best story that they've ever read, best series they've ever read, post-apocalyptic. I thank them for that. I'm not bragging, I'm just passing that on. If you haven't read them and you are serious about preparedness, or if you just like a great post-apocalyptic story, I think you'll love them and you'll learn a lot. Now, the ways to get them are two ways, either through Amazon, that link's down below, and you can always get them through Amazon. But a better way, and the way that I really love people to get them, is through me directly, and that is through our website, stonemont.us. That is, the link is also down below, but I have to give you. Now, if you do it through me, I sign each one for you. I write a note in each one for you, and then we're able to give them to you kind of a discount, because we save money when we ship them as a set. You can get them as a whole set through me. Can't do that through Amazon. And we save a little money on that, and we pass that on to you. Plus, I put in the Stone Mountain notebook for no charge, where you can write all your thoughts and plans and lists and everything in. People love that. I use mine all the time. I think I've filled up 7 or 8 of them already. But here's what I want to warn you about. If you get them through me, I love you to do it. I hope you do it that way, but you have to be willing to wait. We are about a month behind on order fulfillments. We have just been so slammed with orders. I love it. I thank you. I thank the good Lord for the success He's brought me, but I want you to know that. So if you can be patient, if you can wait a month or so to get them, and you'll still be happy when you get them after a month. You go, all right, I've been waiting, I've been looking forward. It's like Christmas, right? But if you can wait a month, I hope you'll get them from me, because I love that. It gives me some kind of relationship with you, my readers. I feel like, you know, when I write your name to John, to Susie, whatever, I feel like I kind of know you. And I really like that. So there you go. Either way you want to do it, Amazon or stonemont.us, you will learn a lot and you'll love the story. I talk about history. I talk about comparative justice. I talk about the real history that most people don't know. And when you learn real history, it changes the way you think about things, right? Okay. So that's it. The prodigal prepper. Are you a prodigal prepper? I hope not. But if you are, maybe this has helped you turn back and say, hey, I need to come home to the basics, right? Okay. You all have a good day. Stay in touch with what's happening in the world. Realize you can't change it. Don't get all wound around the axle about it. You know, live your life and do what you can do with you, because that's your responsibility. And as we always say, we prepare well today in order to live well tomorrow. So get out there and do something and prepare so that you can live well tomorrow. Okay? All right. You all have a great day, and I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.